Yeah, sure, people get killed, you know, but I'm very careful, so I'm not going to be the one that hurts anybody, no less kills anybody. Of course not, you know, it can't happen to me.
I talked to my dad again. I was like, what's going on? And he said, well, there's been an accident and your sister didn't make it.
I could never recreate that moment. Whatever that was that came out from the depths of my soul, that scream, that horror, that was, you know, my worst nightmare coming true.
It's always the other guy. Never is this something that happens to us or our family.
It won't happen to us. We're good people. We follow the rules. We're always out there trying to help other people, or and then there you are, the bad guys.
I wanted to know who he was and why he felt like he could get away with it, and that he was different, and you know, he could make it home from the beach intoxicated and drive and take the life of my sister.
If I could turn back the clock before May 11th, that crash never would have happened, and I would still have my daughter.
My name is Raine Smallridge, or I guess I should say it was. I'm now inmate P22679. On May 11, 2002, I made the worst decision of my life. I chose to drink and drive.
It's considered one of the most frequently committed crimes, a crime we all suffer from. Hello, I'm Tina Dunbar, and welcome to this special edition of Tallahassee Matters. For the next hour, we're going to take a close look at the devastating impact of drinking and driving. It's estimated that 1/3 of traffic fatalities are alcohol related, and many involve young people between the ages of 15 to 24. We're going to see what the city of Tallahassee is doing to identify intoxicated drivers and make the roads a lot safer. We begin with the stories of several families whose lives have been dramatically altered, shattered by one moment in time and the decision to drink and drive.
Meagan was born on March 31st, 1982. She is an identical twin. She and her sister Carmen were born, and because they were twins, they were just into everything, and what one didn't think of, the other did.
She was just a lot of fun, a very magnetic type personality, and made friends very easily. I enjoyed very much spending time with her. She was my heart and soul, my best friend, somebody that thought I could never live without.
Eric was a very special son in that while I have two other sons, he was our natural born, and he always made me very proud. He was a tremendous athlete, and since he was a little guy, he would get out there in the soccer field and kick the ball around. And as he grew up, he was involved in the scouting program and ultimately became an Eagle Scout. And I don't have to tell you that that makes a dad very proud.
Meagan and Carmen were always my best friends, even from, way back in middle school and high school. I just saw us, being very close forever, and having babies together, a big family, just like ours.
Eric was really on his way to fulfilling his dream of, he wanted to be a successful businessman, and he had high aspirations of going on and having a really productive life. had a girlfriend and they were contemplating the future, and so I had a lot of hope and excitement about where my baby was going to go from there. It was a good time for him.
We always thought that, you know, maybe one day if it worked out, we would get married at the same time, have a double wedding, you know, share experiences like that, have children at the same time so that they could grow up together and kind of have a life that was maybe mimicked of ours and be best friends like we were.
Everything seemed to be going wonderfully. I guess I was oblivious to some of the catastrophic things that happened. I think like every other parent, we hope for the best and believe that that will come true, except that unfortunately in Eric's case it came tragically to an end on May 11th of 2002 when he had a very serious accident.
I had been under the influence so many times, and I had tempted fate so many times, and nothing ever happened. It was nothing but selfishness. I said, oh, well, if I get a DUI, then I'll start to think about it. Or if I get pulled over, or God forbid I wreck my car, you know, then I'll really have to tell my, you know, my parents will wonder what's going on. It was about me, 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 I. What happens if I do this, or if I get a ticket? So I still had that same attitude. Well, I'll give it another try. And if I get pulled over, then we'll have to think a little more seriously about it.
It was the day before Mother's Day, and I had talked to Meagan Friday night, the night before at about 11:30. I called her to see what she was doing. She told me that she and Lisa were at the beach and they were looking at the sky and it was so beautiful. And we talked for a few minutes, and I really basically called to ask her if she wanted to go with me to Tallahassee because I thought it would be nice to have 2 of my 4 children with me on Mother's Day. And she said yes, just call me in the morning. So that was our arrangement, you know, and we said, I love you, and we hung up, and that was our last conversation.
Well, it all started early in the morning. I swing by the store and I grab a 12-pack, and we head to the beach. You know, there's about 10 of us down there, and we're throwing the Frisbee and just getting some sun and hanging out, you know, just, you know, kind of what college guys do. So we stopped at a little bar down there. We ate, and of course we ordered some pitchers of beer, and we had a couple more drinks, but it wasn't like a night of all-out partying by any means, you know. But next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and the bars are about to close, and it's time to go. So got on the road. I didn't see him, and neither did anybody else, but apparently the car that Meagan and Lisa were driving in, Meagan Napier and Lisa Dixon, had come on into the inside lane, and I'm in the middle lane, and there was a white Camaro in the right lane. And as we take off from the light, we're going around a curve, and it says right lane ends. And he pulls up next to me, and I look over at him, and in that instance, he's merging, and I'm looking at him, and next thing you know, I leave my lane.
He hit them at such an impact that it smashed in the back end and exposed the wheel, and his tire caught her tire, and that caused him to flip, and then that caused them to slide sideways into the tree. So the impact was where Meagan was on that side, on the passenger side. I believe that their necks were broken when he hit them from behind. The seat backs actually broke, so they ended up being kind of shoved into the back seat. You know, it was a reclining position that they were in because of the seat backs breaking, but I believe their necks broke at that instant, and then, you know, just whipping around the tree just kind of finished them off.
It was devastating to me to hear my son tell me that he had an accident. We talked about what happened. That conversation abruptly ended because the police took his cell phone away from him as I listened. It was at that juncture that the police explained to him, and I could overhear this, that 2 people, I didn't know what gender, had died in the accident.
The crash happened at about a little after 2 in the morning, and I found out about it probably around 8:45. My sister-in-law showed up at the door, and she was very somber, and she just looked at me and said, "There's been an accident. It was Meagan. She didn't make it."
When I heard that there had been an accident, I immediately thought, you know, like my grandparents had died or somebody's house caught on fire. And when he said my sister, I mean, he probably said Meagan just to make sure that I knew it was Meagan. I just lost it. I mean, it was just the most surreal and awful thing that I could ever even imagine. I mean, it just never even crossed my mind.
She was definitely, for lack of a better adjective, ripped away from me very, very quickly. And definitely, I feel like half of me is gone, if not more.
The very first time I saw the car that the girls were in was at the impound. It's a little gold Mazda. I don't know what model it is, but it was small, and when I first walked up to it, it took my breath away, because even though I knew it was going to be bad, you're just never prepared for what it's going to look like.
The side of the vehicle that had the most damage happened to be where my sister was sitting. And so all I could think about was her inside of it, wrapped around a tree, you know, not being able to move. And just thoughts of what was going through her head before it happened. You know, I wanted to know all that, and I never will.
We did receive the autopsy report of Meagan and what went on in her body, and she was just smashed. I mean, her spleen was smashed, her heart was severed in 3 places, and she was just crushed. And that made it make sense, you know, that nobody could have survived that accident. Because you always wonder, you know, well, could they have lived? Could they have lived? But there's just no way.
We were in total shock, having learned what transpired. When we reached Eric, of course, I can only say there were a lot of tears, just an awful lot of tears. It was hard to believe that 2 beautiful young ladies had died. He was devastated, absolutely devastated. The sorrow that we felt is beyond description.
The realization set in when we got to the apartment where Eric lived, and he took one look at me and I him, and we just both fell apart. I was at that point so relieved to see him, and it was heartbreaking, because his heart was broken at that point, realizing what he had done. He was inconsolable.
And so we realized that we best just pack him up and take him back to Tallahassee, which we did. At that point, it became apparent that Eric was becoming extremely despondent, and I was deeply concerned.
I went into the darkest pit that I've ever been in, ever. It was like the deepest depression I've ever been in my life. I was so ashamed of myself that I didn't even want to be seen in anybody else's eyes. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the time I was contemplating suicide, because I knew that, you know, 2 20-year-old girls had just been killed. Granted, I didn't mean to do it, but it was such a selfish act on my part that why should I go on living? Why do I deserve to keep on living and they don't?
He got the phone and called us to say goodbye. That's not something any parent ever wants to go through.
I kept telling her repeatedly, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I can't do it, I can't do it. You know, she's like, we'll help you through it. I said, it's not gonna work. I can't handle it. I can't live with what I've done. So I have to go. I kept telling her, I have to go. And just this little spirit inside of me told me, look, man, it's gonna be all right. You're gonna make it through this. What would your mom think if she had to bury you? with a big hole in the back of your head because you couldn't stand up to what, and take responsibility for what you've done.
I kept talking to him, and his dad put down the phone and used another line to call the police.
And 2 Grady County deputies responded to the scene, and I'm certain in my own mind that if they hadn't done that and joined us in convincing him not to shoot himself, that he would have done it.
You see the traumatic impact that this situation has had on the families, not just Meagan and Lisa's parents, but also Eric's parents. The families share an unbearable pain, a pain that will continue.
We realized that we would have to prepare for his defense.
It was about, I think, 4 days of trial, maybe 5. It was extremely difficult, and to sit there and watch your baby, your child, sitting at the table in front of you, he was ill. He was so ill with hurting and fear at that point of what would become of him. It was very difficult.
And people have to recognize that this is very expensive. You don't hear about this when you read about Mel Gibson when he's picked up in California. You don't hear about this when Paris Hilton is picked up. The difference being, of course, that there were no deaths involved. But why not? It could have been them. They could have driven into 2 beautiful 20-year-old young ladies, and that's exactly what they'd face. Would they be released? How many thousands of dollars would be involved? In our case, we had to muster $50,000. People don't recognize the gravity of these type things, the cost involved. A defense of this case is $150,000 at a minimum. And many times we thought this would be painful, not only on us, but most particularly the families of Meagan and Lisa.
It was very difficult for us through the trial because we saw him fighting for his freedom. I mean, in a way you understand that because nobody wants to go to prison for 30 years, but we wanted to see that remorse.
I hated him. I didn't ever want to see him. Had no desire to meet him, had no desire to know him.
I was just mad, and I wanted him to die. I thought, you know, the only way to make sense of this is for him to die too, because he did something so stupid that he deserves it.
When we realized that there was, you know, the potential of 30 years in prison, of course my reaction was, you know, this can't be. He didn't mean to hurt anybody. He's such a sensitive person in so many ways.
And I wanted so bad to be innocent, even though I knew I was guilty deep down. I wanted so bad for somebody to tell me I was innocent because I thought that would be what helped me. But the fact is the only thing that helped me was actually accepting responsibility for what I had done.
The verdict came down guilty. I think we were prepared for that. But when the judge pronounced 22 years, immediately your head starts doing the numbers. You know, how old will he be? You know, okay, he'll be in his 50s. Oh my gosh, I'm in my 50s.
Being 60 years old at that time, I knew that I'd be 80 before he was released. And that's a long time. And I wasn't really planning on living to be 80.
22 years, which was just a year and a half, basically longer than he had lived. He would now be in prison for another lifetime.
They read the guilty verdict, I knew I was guilty, and that's the point where I started to accept responsibility. So when they read 22 years, honestly, that wasn't what it was about. It wasn't about the time that they took from me and put me in prison because I had brought all this upon myself. It was about me being able to apologize to these families.
He wrote us a letter, and that letter, I'll never forget. I read that letter probably 10 times and sobbed the first 10 times I read it because he apologized. And you could tell that he was very remorseful from the depths of his soul.
It's easier to forgive a person when you know they're sitting in a jail cell and they are sitting there with child molesters and rapists and thinking, man, he made a dumb mistake. He shouldn't be sitting there with intentional criminals.
But what really hurts and what the real punishment is having to deal with the fact that 2 lives, in my case, were taken because of a selfish decision I made. That's the real punishment, is living with that. And so when they read the 22 years, I said, well, that's just what I'm gonna have to do because that's my debt to society. And I knew that no prison time would ever bring Meagan and Lisa back, and it's never gonna make it completely better for the families.
If Eric is able to speak to youth either through, the prison cell where he is or outside of it, I feel like he can make a huge difference because he has been on that side of the steering wheel and he has survived it, which he is lucky that he did. Meagan and Lisa weren't that lucky.
If there was one thing that I could ask for in this world, I would ask for them to be back. I would ask for this situation not to have happened. And that's why I intend to do whatever I can to carry on their legacy in a positive manner. Instead of to continue to let this be a tragedy, make something beautiful come of it, and try to deter as many people from making the same mistake that I did in honor of them. And I would want them to know that that's what I plan on doing.
You heard it before, it will never happen to me. Now we're going to tell you about a Tallahassee family whose son made some bad decisions and is lucky to be alive.
It was very, very scary. All we could do was just sit there and talk to him and let him know we were there and let him know that we loved him and hope that he could hear us and knew we were there. Paralysis, that crossed our minds. If he made it, we'd be paralyzed. It was bad.
You want to be the cool guy. You want everybody to like you. You want just to have a good time, and for some reason alcohol seems to come into play with that to people like my age, my mindset, I guess, and there's a lot of people like that. I used to hear stories about it, and I used to even think to myself, whatever, that can't happen to me. I'm too good for that. I got too much practice and stuff like that. But all it took is that one time in a million.
He had been driving, heading west on Tennessee Street toward the university at a high rate of speed. He sideswiped another vehicle, just barely hit him, but in doing so, he felt that he needed to correct and overcorrected and ended up in the median, started rolling when he hit the median, flipped 4, 5, or 6 times into lanes for the oncoming traffic. Fortunately, there was no traffic at that time. And toward the last flip, he was ejected through the sunroof and ended up on the sidewalk across the street.
If I thought I could drive, I could drive. Never really took account of how much I drank or anything like that. I know I drank entirely too much and tried to drive. My judgment clearly wasn't right. It was by far the stupidest thing I've ever done. They took me to the hospital. I was in a coma for 7 days.
We were in Lake City coming back from Gainesville, and we were scared to death. We didn't know what to expect. We both had a really bad feeling that we knew it was serious, but I was scared he was going to be gone when we got here. I was scared that once we got back to Tallahassee that he was going to be dead, and it was just an awful, awful feeling. It was terrible.
It was the longest hour drive that I've ever made. It was like time stopped almost. It was just an incredible feeling after driving home, just so many things go through your mind. We knew that it had something to do with drinking and driving, and we've harped on that with all our kids, and we just wonder, we've got an hour to think about why didn't we say the right thing? What else could we have said? And this is our greatest fears coming to fruition right now.
Mm-hmm. It really took the hard lesson for me. I mean, I had to learn it the hard way.
We had talked to him about it a lot because we knew that he had been drinking from experiences that we had in the past, and almost every time he was around, we discussed it.
They always said, don't drink and drive, just don't get behind the wheel. If you've been drinking, don't make choices like that. It never really clicked with me though. I was Mr. Invincible, so I wasn't gonna get hurt. I wasn't gonna hurt anybody else. It wouldn't happen to me.
We could kind of see that it wasn't clicking, and then of course we go back to our youth and wondered what could somebody have told us, that would have made it click, and so frustrating not coming up with the words and not having any idea what words will click. And you try everything. You try yelling, you try talking quietly and reasoning, just any method you can try to come up with to try to click with the kid. And apparently it didn't click.
I was in the hospital for about a month altogether. Did a lot of rehab, stayed in rehab after I got out of the hospital.
Those first 7, 8, 10 days while he's in a coma and just coming out were just excruciating for us, just terrible. There's ups and downs. There was a stage where he became volatile and used foul language and that sort of thing at anybody that would approach him. There's others where he was more docile and sweet, and kind of reminded us of when he was much younger, I guess.
I know now, and I wish somebody would listen, because I mean it when I say it. It can happen to you, and you won't like it if it does, if you're as lucky as me to even be around still. I'm still dealing with court and legal problems to this day, and it's been almost a year since it happened. Many, many fines, lots of classes, community service. I'm on probation from it. That's something I never would have really considered myself, somebody that needs to be on probation or somebody that needs to have legal problems. But I'm dealing with all that now. I mean, I've been in court 3 times, and it's horrible. I really wish my whole mindset would have been different about, like I said, what I thought was a cool thing to do and what I thought was the best way to fit in.
Well, obviously we're thankful with the way it's ending up. The results could have been so much worse, and we just kind of remind folks, just keep loving your kids, keep an eye on them, sniff them, just make sure you can get a good, keep the lines of communication open and that you know what's going on with them.
Right.
I probably, two years ago, I've been sitting watching something like this, saying this couldn't happen to me. It can happen to anybody, anybody. Anytime, if you make a dumb enough decision, it can happen to you. And you need to think about that before you make decisions like that.
So you think DUIs are not a problem in our community? Well, think again. That's part of the reason why Tallahassee police have stepped up safety checkpoints to reduce traffic fatalities and put the brakes on drivers under the influence.
Number 1. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you tonight?
I'm great.
Great. I'm Sergeant Gauding with the police department. We're conducting a safety checkpoint. I just need to see your driver's license, please. We saw the highest number of traffic fatalities in the history of the city of Tallahassee last year. There were 29 traffic fatalities within the city limits. We have seen over 100% reduction so far this year, and we hope that our education and enforcement programs are part of the reason for that reduction.
Hey, good evening. How are you? My name's Officer Lee. I'm with the traffic unit. Just like you know, it's a safety checkpoint.
I just need to see your driver's license, please.
You have the registration also and the insurance card?
It's a safety checkpoint. You have your license, registration, insurance.
Registration, sir. You have that?
Can I see your license, registration, insurance, please?
The vehicle's information. Are you familiar? It's a little white piece of paper.
If you could just pull right in there so we're out of the flow of traffic, then we can take our time, all right?
look in the glove box. That's usually where people keep it. That's it. All right, looks good. There you are. Thank you very much. Have a good night now. Be safe.
Our number one goal is we want to prevent any traffic fatalities, any serious injury crashes, and we'd like to take as many impaired drivers off the road as we can.
DUI has been around so long. It used to be called DWI. This is it's basically a war that we've been fighting for years and years. Are we winning it? Yeah, I think we are. I think we're making a significant impact. Our department alone, the Tallahassee Police Department, makes about 600 arrests a year for DUI.
This is important because over 50% of all the traffic fatalities are alcohol related. And so it's very important to the safety of everyone in our community to identify impaired drivers and to get them off the road.
It's been my experience that when we conduct these checkpoints, wherever it is in the city, the majority of citizens that we come in contact with are very happy and pleased to see us down here doing that. Occasionally, we do get the citizen who's aggravated at being delayed, but I think it's important to remember that driving is a privilege, it's not a right. And if we can eliminate one serious injury or fatality crash by doing these checkpoints, then it's worth it. We stop every vehicle, and anyone who we suspect of being an impaired driver, they're taken out of the vehicle immediately. An officer moves the vehicle to the safety zone, and we conduct a DUI investigation.
We announce these. We have them all throughout the year. A lot of people think we just have these checkpoints at the holidays or just at New Year's Eve. No, we have them all the time. We have them throughout the year, and at some points we have them every weekend for months on end.
Tonight we've seen a lot of driver's license infractions, some safety equipment violations. We did have some people drinking and driving.
This particular individual was under the influence of alcohol. I did do some field sobriety exercises on him. I did not have probable cause for an arrest. So what I asked him to do is provide me a breath sample and a portable breath tester. And if he blows over a .02, then we automatically suspend his license for 6 months under an administrative law. He's not arrested, there's no fine that's involved, there's no ticket, he doesn't have to go to court, it's just an administrative suspension. If he refuses to provide that breath sample, then his license is suspended for a year for a first refusal or 18 months for a second refusal or subsequent refusal. He did provide a breath sample. He did blow over a .02 and his license was suspended for 6 months. He was issued a notice of suspension. He's not going to have a criminal record, but we do get him off the road, and hopefully we will get a change in his behavior.
People think of DUI, it stays with you forever, and now they've enacted laws that if you're under 18, it stays on your history. So what does that mean to folks? Well, they come here to Florida State, to FAMU, to TCC, to get an education, to start their careers. Well, when you go in there and fill out those applications to get into the school of whatever, and they look at that and they see the DUI or whatever, it may exclude you from going into the field that you wanted to go into. It could exclude you from law enforcement, the career that you've always chosen since you were a child. It can exclude you from all the opportunity that you were hoping for over something so silly as drinking and driving.
I pretty much was at my buddy's house, had a couple beers, but not enough to get in trouble. So just driving home, I got pulled over, so there's nothing you can do about it. Did a sobriety test on me. I didn't have to do a breathalyzer. I normally don't drink and drive. Sometimes I do, but yeah, it's always good to have a designated driver when you go out every night. But it's hard to find designated drivers too, a lot of times, because everybody likes to drink, especially in a college town like this. It's definitely gonna make me think twice not to drink and drive, and probably to tell my friends not to drink and drive, because stuff like this, if they did this every weekend or like once a week, I know a lot of people would get arrested, definitely. Probably half of my friends.
They have to know that we're gonna be out here, and they have to know that there's zero tolerance. And if they see that, you know, they see that we're out here several nights, and they see that their buddies are getting arrested, and they hear the stories and know that we're not going to put up with it and that it's not going to be allowed, then word gets around pretty quickly and we start to see a decline in the behavior.
What can you do to prevent yourself from being swept up into the DUI? How can you avoid driving under the influence? We've heard all the cliches, you know, don't drink and drive you lose. And I firmly believe in those, but folks I think sometimes hear that so much that it just becomes another blah, blah, blah. And what we're asking you to do is, it's easy to avoid. Taxis are cheap. Taxis are so much cheaper than a DUI. That first-time DUI could cost you $1,500, $2,000, an attorney involved, $5,000, and the loss of your license. So what's the big deal? Take a $15 taxi ride, split it with your friends, there's nothing to it. Our goal at the Tallahassee Police Department is not to make a bunch of arrests. Our goal is that we want you to voluntarily comply with the law. We want you to save your own life. We're not asking you to not drink and drive because it's the law. We're asking you to do that because it can save your life and it's the right thing to do, and it's so easy to avoid drinking and driving. Too often, we have to go and knock on your parents' door and let them know that their son or daughter is now deceased because of a silly decision that they made, something that was so easy to avoid.
And I can tell you that the knock on the door in the middle of the night is something that none of us want to do anymore. And if we can reduce the number of fatalities or eliminate fatalities, then that's our real driving motivation.
Some people feel that the safety checkpoints are an inconvenience, they're bothersome. What we ask folks to do is, hey, wouldn't you rather be inconvenienced just a few moments and let us find that impaired driver before he hits you or your family? So please be patient with us. We get you through these checkpoints in no time at all. They're very easy. Our goal is not, again, to write citations. Our goal is simply compliance. We want you to comply with the law.
Admit it. You've been at a party, had a drink, and then drove home. You probably made it there without a problem, but I bet you haven't thought about the consequences of your actions. You were lucky because the stakes are high.
You are stripped of all your pride when you were put into a prison system. The first thing they do is strip you butt naked. They talk down on you, of course. They're trying to get you ready for prison system. You're under so many rules that your pride is literally stripped. We have a set schedule, and I hear people, and have actually myself referred to it as Groundhog's Day. Your routine: morning wake-up call, 4:45. Breakfast at 5 to 5:30. You have the same menu, and the food never changes. They call the work squads at 7 o'clock. Then you go to lunch at 11 o'clock. Then you go back to work at 12 o'clock. And it's such a repetitive routine. Everything you do is under scrutiny. If you want to make a phone call, you have to wait to a certain hour. And when you do call, it's the people on the other end, your family or friends, that have to pay for that call. But being put into a dorm with 70 people that you don't know is one of the hardest things there is, because there's bitterness, there's hatred. The anger just builds. And so you have to kind of walk on eggshells a lot. And, especially when you first get here, it's a very scary place, because you don't know when somebody's going to snap. There's a lot of different groups of people. A lot of the black guys hang out with black people, the Puerto Ricans with Puerto Ricans, the whites with the whites. So it's almost like a segregated place. It's like a really small, primitive community within a very huge community, except for we're behind razor wire, and you're here with people of all ranges: child molesters, murderers, rapists. They're all here on this compound. People ranging from having a year and a day in prison to having multiple life sentences. And you have to be around these people no matter how you're feeling. So if you're sick, you're with the same 70 people. It's hard for people in the free world to pick 1 or 2 roommates to live with. Well, how about here? Here's 70 that you didn't pick. And here's 6 toilets that y'all can use. And here's 6 shower heads that y'all can use. There's 2 heaters. There's 6 ceiling fans. And there's no AC. No air conditioning. So when it gets 110 degrees outside, you can believe that you're sweating. Have a nice day. It's horrible. I'm not saying that Florida is treating their inmates bad. I'm saying that the situation that you get yourself into is what's bad. From very disturbing things go on after the lights go out in prison. You're supposed to go to bed, and the officers do the best they can to keep people in their beds. I guess the old saying is, freaks come out at night, and that's what it is here too. Fortunately, in the 3 years that I've been here, I've never been exposed to it, but I'm one of the few. So life here has been an experience, to say the least, and it's not a place that I would ever suggest anybody come to, and I would never want to be here again. The one thing that bothers me the most about being in prison is being away from my family and friends. That is the hardest thing there is, and that is my punishment, and there's nothing beyond that. One of the other hardest things that is right up there on that level is having to look out at these razor wires and remember every day why I'm here. And that's because of a decision I made. I chose to drink and drive, and this is what I get for it. And that is really hard. Every dorm has bars on the windows. And when you wake up in the morning and you see 70 roommates and you want to look out the window and there's bars, and outside of those bars are gun towers and razor wire all over the fence, it's a constant reminder of you're in prison for a reason. What is that reason? You chose to drink and drive.
So how do we avoid the senseless tragedies that go along with drinking and driving? Education is the key. That's why the Tallahassee Police Department has started the speed class to provide alternatives for parents and their young drivers.
Driving a car and something happens. Whack. Okay, bam. And what happens if you move your hands and I don't move my hands? It's a free slap, right? Oh, free slap. Okay. Several years ago, we recognized that we had a problem with drinking and driving in our teens. We were losing far too many teens to traffic crashes. So the Tallahassee Police Department took the lead and decided to come up with a program to help give our parents and our teens a way to defend themselves while they're driving, give them some good education on how to avoid the peer pressure of drinking and driving, alcohol consumption under 21. So we developed the SPEED program, which is a support of parents and police educating early drivers to help to provide our parents and our students with information on how to avoid the speeding issue, the drinking and driving issue, and we think we've made a significant impact. Our recidivism rate for those students that have been through our program is about 1%. When you're driving your vehicle, or your parents' vehicle, whoever's vehicle it may be, every decision you make in that vehicle, from the time that you turn the key, from the time that you sit down in the vehicle, till you get to your destination and get out of that car, affects the rest of your life. Every single decision, every second that you drive that vehicle, because if you make one mistake, it can destroy your life. If you decide to consume alcohol before you drive and you have a crash and kill someone, now you're going to jail for 20 years. In order to be accepted in the program in the speed class, you cannot have a prior citation. A parking ticket would be okay, but you can't have a prior uniform traffic citation, a speeding ticket, or any other type of moving violation.
Considering BJ is my oldest boy, my oldest son that is, he's a teenager now, and I thought it was very important that he learned a lot, as much as possibly could, as it relates to driving as well as the alcohol situation.
The student enrolls in the class, they are required to bring a parent with them. It gives the teen and the parent a chance to spend some time together, talk about the issue that brought them into this class, which is usually speeding, and we give them some information on reaction time and how to avoid crashes. You're going down the road and your friends are cutting up in the back seat, and you being the mature person you are, decide that, hey, hold on to one wheel and I'll slap them and tell them to, okay? Parents, okay, let's be honest, parents. Back in the day, when the kids were acting up in the back seat, how many parents in here, raise your hand, how many parents in here reached back, looked away from the roadway at 60 miles an hour and beat your child? See?
I think it's very important that he come to this class, and I'm glad they have it available because I think it's going to make him a better driver. I think it's going to make him more aware.
I thought it was just going to be a bore fest for 4 hours, but it honestly was very educational and was a lot of fun to go to, and I was very entertained by it. It was very good.
Your ability to react has been reduced over time because you're getting older. As you continue, no kidding. As you continue to get older, it will decrease and decrease and decrease. One of the things we really enjoy in the class is the hands-on approach. We love giving the students an opportunity to come up there and demonstrate to them reaction time. Okay, all I want you to do, I'm going to drop this $10 bill. When I drop it, you simply squeeze your fingers together and you win. Oops, sorry. Okay. Probably wasn't ready. All right, let's try again. Ready? Are you focusing? You understand the directions? All you got, I'm going to drop it, you're going to catch it. I'm going to drop it, you're going to catch it. I'm going to drop it, you're going to catch it, right? You completely understand? He's not slow or anything. Reaction time is something we see every day in life, whether you're driving a motor vehicle, walking down the hall, opening up a can of Coke, whatever it is. And these are the most fun ways for people to learn. It's so boring to sit there for me and listen to someone just give you information, expect you to copy it down and learn it. All right, one last chance. Are you ready? Get set! All right, go ahead and have a seat. Go ahead and have a seat. And you've had no alcohol. Now let me ask you a question. We haven't talked about reaction time, and I'm going to give you some great statistics, but what do you think would happen if he consumed alcohol with his reaction time? They realize now that as young as they are, the silly examples, the dropping of a dollar bill and you can't catch it in your hand, while they're silly and fun, you'll learn a lot from them. You realize that, you know what, I think that I'm great. I think I'm a really good driver. And then you get in there and you do something silly like that and you realize, wow, at 60 miles an hour, I'm nothing. Things happen just too fast for me. So it's just a wonderful way to learn. It's hands-on learning.
Well, I thought it was an excellent opportunity, a great experience. As a driver, I've been driving for a number of years, but I learned a great deal. The presenters were great.
I thought it was going to be boring because I didn't want to come here, but it turned out being, very fun and entertaining, and I learned a lot coming here.
The most important thing I learned tonight from this course was I learned just how much reaction time you really have. Like, honestly, you think you have plenty of time to stop, you have plenty of time to react, but honestly, you really do not have that much time.
We want everyone to be a part of this program, whether they've gotten a traffic citation or not. Some insurance companies have even given a discount for people that have completed the program. This is called a driver improvement program. So if there's anyone out there that wants to participate, we encourage them to call us, send us your student, let us have them for a few minutes to give them some information and help protect them.
Drinking and driving is no accident. It's about choice. You choose to drink, you choose to get drunk, you choose to climb behind the wheel of a car. Alcohol-related crashes can be avoided, but only if you make the right choice.
The time has come that we must stop drinking and driving.
It has to be not socially acceptable for everybody, for anybody. We just can't, the same old thing doesn't work anymore. We can't have a drink and leave a restaurant thinking, okay, I'll just drive carefully, because people do it every day.
In Florida, we have a little over 3,000 traffic fatalities each year. One-third of those fatalities are alcohol related. Of all the traffic crashes, about 1 in 10 traffic crashes are alcohol related.
You may not even think you're that bad off, and other people may not think it either, but that doesn't mean that it's okay to drink and drive. If you know that you've had more than 2 or 3 beers, you can't get behind the wheel because you don't know exactly where you're at. So that's why it's a lot more safe to just not drink and drive at all.
Don't think it can't happen to you. Don't make bad decisions because you think it can't happen to you, because it can, and it very well could any day,
One of the things that we see in our young adults, our teens, is, and we've all been there, we think we're invincible at that age. It's not going to happen to me. I am so young that my reaction time is, I'm like a cat, nothing gets by me. I can catch anything. I can stop on a dime. I can turn on a dime. And the reality is, every day you lose a little bit of that. And no matter how good you think you are, you're still just a human being. And things happen far too fast in a motor vehicle for any human being to possibly calculate what you should do, then carry it out and make the right decision.
We've been young. We know what it's like to be in a situation where everybody is drinking, where everybody thinks that they can have a couple and be fine, then a couple turns into a couple more, and you don't know where that line is, that you are no longer able to safely drive. So you really have to, there is no line. You cannot drink and then get behind the wheel.
It's only after the fact, after the tragedy, that you start really examining issues and say, wow, I guess I thought it was typical what my boys were doing. I thought I was right on top of it.
One of the things that I encourage all parents to do is sit down and talk to your teen. I don't mean when they start driving, I mean when they're a teen. When they're 13, you need to be sitting down with them. Explain to them and show them that you care.
Keep an eye on them. Know what they're doing. Know where they're going.
Know who their friends are.
Absolutely. Stay up for them when they're coming home at night, so you can make sure that they're in the condition you think they ought to be when they come home.
Don't hesitate to give them a hug and sniff them every now and then. Make sure they, you don't smell any alcohol on them, or, just check up on them.
Parents are role models, and I think that kids watch you, and they're going to imitate what you do.
You can't just tell them don't drink and drive and then, but we'll go out to dinner and have 3 or 4 beers and still drive home. You really have got to show them that you're living what you're telling them.
If they have made this mistake over and over again, give us a call, give the police department a call. We'll be glad to come to your house and provide some information for you. Sit down and talk with your young teen with you and give them some real life scenarios, what could and couldn't happen to them, and give you some good advice on how to avoid that peer pressure.
This isn't a game. It's not a game anymore, We've been tempting fate for so long, and just because nothing's ever happened doesn't mean it won't. And so this can happen to anybody at any time, and it doesn't necessarily have to be completely your fault, because the legal system has said that if you were 1% at fault, then you're guilty. Not me. It's not going to happen to me. And so every time my parents would tell me about it, I would say, okay, Mom, okay, Dad, trust me, I'm not going to do it. And then I would go do it.
When I got to Eric after the accident, that first time I saw him after the accident and we both broke down, he kept saying, why didn't I listen? Why didn't I listen? He just kept repeating, why didn't I listen?
It's very important for people to know that they're not treating this lightly. It used to be a slap on the wrist. Even when someone would get killed, it would be, oh, well, it was an accident, and so we're not going to give you too much time, but you better not do it again. Well, they've changed their stance. Their stance now is, you got behind the wheel knowing that you were impaired, and therefore you knew what you were doing, and if you're going to do the crime, you're going to do the time. Because the truth of the matter is that if you are .07 and you get into an accident and somebody's killed, you may not get DUI manslaughter, but I can guarantee you, almost with 95% surety, that you will get a vehicular homicide charge. And you know what it carries? The same exact thing as DUI manslaughter. So buzzed or drunk, it's all the same.
Had Eric not gotten a DUI, it would have been like what I talked about earlier, maybe he did make it home. But what if he decided to do that the next weekend and took somebody else's life?
You have to have a plan before you even set out for the night, and you need to talk about it with your friends, and you need to talk about it with your family, and I think communicating is the key, and then holding each other responsible. I think everybody has this moral and civic obligation, because if people don't hold each other accountable for drinking and driving, that's how this stuff happens. Eric had friends who told him, and other friends who could have, physically intervened and said, no, I'm not letting you do this. But they didn't, and you have to wonder, are you really being a friend if you're letting someone who you know should not be drinking and driving get it behind the wheel of the car?
People have got to know that they must designate drivers.
People frown upon designated driving because it's not cool, but they love superheroes. But really, superheroes and designated drivers do the same thing. They both save lives, and that's why it really is cool to be a designated driver. Because had I had a designated driver, Meagan and Lisa might have still been here. Or had I been the designated driver, Meagan and Lisa would still be here.
Because of that, my twin sister is no longer alive, and one of my best friends is no longer alive. And I feel like peer pressure had a lot to do with it,
Peer pressure, I think, is the most significant thing that young people deal with. They're all bravado and hope and dreams, and they've got to be, what their peers think of them is so vitally important that sometimes it's strong enough that they'll do things even against their own character. On the other hand, it doesn't even have to be against their character. If it's against the law, they'll risk it.
It's so much more admirable for someone to stand up and say, maybe we should think about, having a designated driver or take a cab tonight, than to just let it pass because you don't want to be that person, that brings it up. So I would just encourage people to take a stand for what they know is the right thing to do.
How many people have a breathalyzer in their car? A breathalyzer can be purchased for as little as $17. Not many people have one. If a person is drunk, that person doesn't belong on the road. And if she contributes in the slightest towards an accident, they better be ready to spend 10 years, minimum, of their life in prison with the possibility per death of 15 years.
Just to save one family from all of this grief that we've experienced, and it's worth it. So it's just all about trying to get the message out there and trying to get people to be more responsible. And nobody's telling anybody not to drink and not to have a good time, but just to be smart about it.
Everyone has a cell phone these days. What's the number? The number is 911, and they'll be glad on the other end to respond.
If you're going to party, go for it. Plan ahead. Plan your exit strategy. Have a way to get yourself home safely without endangering anybody, and don't endanger your future. Even if you don't hurt anybody but yourself, you can ruin your life through DUI. Plan ahead. It's so easy to do, but we never think of it. We have to start doing that.
Somebody listening to this will die as a result of drunk driving. It's a terrible statistic, and it's got to stop.
My advice to anybody that thinks it can't happen to them is that's exactly what I thought. I thought that not in a million years would I be the one to take the life of two people. I didn't even think I would kill myself. I didn't think that was a possibility. I thought that the worst that could happen to me was I would get a DUI and that I'd have to worry about a hardship license and, listen to my parents tell me how many times did I tell you not to drink and drive, and look what you've done. And that is the most flawed and selfish way of thinking, and I can honestly say that was me. I was the one that was saying that too, and look where I'm at. My name's not Raine Smallridge anymore, it's P22679, and to think that it can't happen to you is completely wrong.
We hope this presentation will make you think, and with that, save lives. I'm Tina Dunbar. I want to thank you for watching this show. But before we go, we want to leave you with one final thought.
We want folks to know we don't care how old you are, what your excuse is, what's going on in your life, how this is going to affect your career opportunities or whatever. We have a zero tolerance for drinking and driving. If we catch you drinking and driving, you are going to be arrested and you're going to be taken to jail. That will stay on your record for the rest of your life. We're asking you not to drink and drive, but if you choose to, don't ask us for a warning. You're going to be arrested and you're going to jail.